Welcome back to our session on counseling. We're focusing on number 2, moving backwards in the outline, that is psychopathology or a conceptual analysis. Psychopathology is the secular term for what is wrong, what goes wrong with people. And you've had in anthropology a study of how do people function. I tried to give you a biblical view of that. But what in conceptual analysis, now you move to what goes wrong and an understanding of that. And so secular therapists, Christian therapists, there's 100 different perspectives on a conceptual analysis. So what I did to simplify this lecture was to put it into a chart. So there's what's called the secular waterline chart on the weekly assignments. You might want to pause the video, get that open, have it on your screen somewhere else, or even make a hard copy as you go through this lecture. You'll notice on the hard copy or on the screen, you'll notice on the chart, the secular waterline therapy chart, it basically plays off of this victimization agency. And you have the iceberg, you have the waterline, what's going below the waterline, what's going above the waterline. And I tried to put it into a simple chart how all of the therapies out there, the secular therapies, the Christian therapies, would focus on this aspect. And so if you go to the chart, you see number 1, classical psychology. Freudian, for example. He says that you must pass through a level of rage, go to depression, defense maneuvers, to interpersonal style, and then it goes above the waterline to issues like behavior, emotions, and those types of things. So you can kind of see how you can take each one. Now, I'm not going to go through all the secular psychotherapies. I'm having you read Corey's book to just know what's going on in the secular world, but that's not really the focus of this course. I also added some Christian therapies as well. For example, you have memory healing by Siemens. He's popular on that, of going back into time and seeing God in the purpose of the healing at the past and then reworking through it to see Christ in you as you move through that. His is called memory healing. You can read some of Siemens' work in different places, but I could give a more thorough definition of these. But for the focus of this, I just wanted you to at least see how they fit on the chart. You've got Chuck Solomon's reality therapy, or is it a play off reality therapy, but it's been Christianized. And then charismatics, how they approach things. And so what you have here is a conglomerate of therapies that go below the waterline. And if you'll notice, most of them tend to go through the concept of rage. I've not talked about that yet. I want to do that now. They have things like which lead to depression. People come up with defensive maneuvers. You should remember that from reading classical psychoanalysis chapter, and you can get a feel for that. Interpersonal style. Those are some of the therapies that focus there, like James Dobson, for example, is big on interpersonal style. You'll also see other men that do that as well. Then you move kind of up the waterline, above the waterline, and you get to these emotions and behavior. And then therapies like that, Nouthetic with Jay Adams, and supportive therapies like Norman Vincent Peale, or even Joel Osteen would be a supportive therapy. Of course, I would not agree with his therapy. I'm just telling you he fits into that category. He actually comes off of Norman Vincent Peale's Power of Positive Thinking. And so I can't go through all these therapies at this time. I do when we teach this class in a lecture, but for the sake of this, I want you to at least see that many of the therapies, Christian and secular, are above the waterline, some are below the waterline. But the most important thing on the chart then is this concept of rage, and I thought I would take a minute just to define that, because so many therapies deal with the issues of rage. When we talk about the issues of rage, what we're really talking about is not screaming and yelling and cursing, but really the concept in counseling is this: I've been hurt already, why should I be hurt again? There's an internal rage that goes on in a person for being hurt in life by someone. It is fist shaking at God ultimately, but it's unexperienced. Why am I so upset? What am I so frustrated over? Many times it's really your relationship with God for the way that life has gone for you that you're disappointed in, the people that let you down, all the things you've experienced. And many times it's unacknowledged, and it has to be worked through, whether seculars do it or whether I'm talking to you at a Christian level of doing it in our world as well. Deep within a person's soul is a commitment to find relief at all costs. If I can't get what I want, I should be able to avoid pain. See, so my disappointments in life drive me to find a way to avoid pain. What am I trying to avoid pain for? Because of the rage inside of me that I've been let down so many times, or I've been hurt or not honored, or the dignity of my person hasn't come out. And so people try to find a way to deal with that rage. Just to read one of the Christian therapists that deal with this issue, which I think is a good way to deal with it. He says it this way: "It is simply coming to a deep felt realization that I've been wronged at my deepest parts. Rage, if not faced and entered, functions for the person so as to purposely take the focus off of the longings that weren't not touched and putting the focus upon the person for not having touched them. When a person stops making excuses for those people, he or she experiences victimization in the true sense of the word." And so, in essence, that's a good feel for what rage is. Rage is functional for us. We don't want to let it go or get beneath it to the longings, because once we do, we have to acknowledge that we are scared to death to face what life is like in a fallen world. The writer goes on to say that you have to focus and enter this pain, admit it, realize it's really happened to you. And instead of then saying it's that person's fault or it's God's fault, realizing in the providence, the sovereignty of God, it was allowed to show you that you live in a fallen world. This world is cursed. You're under sin, if you will, and you are being affected by that. And now what are you going to do? You're going to love others and love God? Or are you going to find some way to protect yourself or control your world? And so that concept of rage is so far speaking and so far reaching. I can't really deal with it all, but I at least wanted you to hear why so many therapists go into that. There's two kinds of rage. There's acquisitional relief rage. That is a relief from the rage that I feel. How do I deal with it? If I could acquire some object that will ultimately nourish the soul. That's why people seek possessions and money. They never really face the core rage in their soul because they've allowed money to dull the pain of life. And so they look for some way to dull the fact that they have rage or that they have been missed in their life. And so acquisitional relief says, if I can just get something, if I can just acquire something, it'll take care of the pain in my soul. Never works, because we really thirst after God, and only God can satisfy the longings of our soul. The other relief that often is used for rage is expulsive relief. If I could only get rid of this one thing in my life, if I could only stay away from that or never have to deal with that, I would find relief. And so that's what they do to work to get the pain relieved. Instead of acquiring something as an acquisitional, they expel something from their life. I'll stay away from my father that hurt me. I'll stay away from my mom. I'll stay away from this situation or this person in my life. And that's how they end up trying to find life apart from God, because they're really not pursuing God or others. They're just taking care of their own pain. And so those are ways that are often dealt with in terms of the level of rage and why so many therapies go in that direction.